the understanding, peace, and joy. But what do they mean by enter into communion? What communion?
I would say, from experience, with fear, we tend to extract ourselves from connection with others.
Okay.
And communion is when you don't have fear anymore and you feel, maybe I don't have the right words because I didn't read the book yet. But once the fear is gone, you can be with whomever around you and you will still have that peace.
Okay, so like you become part of the collective.
Well, you become, the fear is gone, so you can connect with whoever. You don't need to feel like you have to avoid people. The collective is people around you that, whatever feeling they're having, if you're confident in yourself and you have that fear is gone, it will be way easier to accept who they are for what they are, and you won't necessarily be afraid to shake in your you.
Well, I'm curious about that because they talk about the atonement too, right? So like that's kind of like moving forward a little bit, and like how the atonement creates the communion between your mind and God's, or the higher thinking.
Yes.
Because and then the other thing too that I read, which was a mind that serves spirit is invulnerable. So it's like your vulnerabilities are when you're in fear.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. And so if you are like on those levels of higher thinking, then that peace and joy can't be disrupted by anything on the outside.
Yes, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your witness that for me are expressing through their miracles that they have abandoned the belief in deprivation in favor of abundance they have learned belongs to them. That's paragraph 4. So that's Escape of Darkness, paragraph 4, line 7.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good one. So as we witness these miracles happening through us and around us, we abandon the belief in deprivation. This is like, and this is something that I talk a lot about, even through the inner child work, is like, as we start to align with these higher thinking and all of these aspects of our mind, we start to realize that there's always abundance around us all the time. It's just that we don't see them necessarily. But when we start looking at the world through these ideas of like miracles are happening all the time,
we have to be in alignment with all that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes the hardest thing to do, or sometimes you're in alignment, you don't even know. Like, that's how I feel. You're just in alignment, and when you're not, you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that I thought was super interesting that I came across was that, there's no work that needs to be done to this. It's just about allowing yourself to be set aside so it can work through you.
Yes, exactly.
And allow the flow.
With ease and grace. I always add with ease and grace because it works for me.
Sorry, guys.
I know that with my trip, I had to let go. I just go with the flow one day at a time, and miracles are just flowing through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they explain, is that it doesn't matter your state. It doesn't matter what is going on with you, as long as you can set aside yourself and just allow the peace, like, because we all experience moments of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's
and holding on to that when things are not as good as we want them to be. Or we are in a position of fear, trying to come back from that, I think, and bringing yourself back in. I think that's kind of what that means, right?
Yeah, no, it sounds, I mean, we're all just learning this, right? So what do you think, Minnie?
I agree with everything that everyone is saying.
Did you want
I'm
to
just kind of in listening mode for the moment.
Good. All right, so if we move forward to wholeness and spirit. So this is interesting because wholeness and spirit, paragraph 1, line 7, you can destroy your medium.
That's
What's that?
That's what I marked down to.
Yeah, you can destroy your medium of communication, but not your potential. You did not create yourself.
Right.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah. You
I
can just,
love that part.
yeah.
What do you think that they mean by you can destroy your meaning of communication? Like your connection to communication to God? Is that?
That's what I think. I think that when you're not living in the light, or that you're in a position where you're negative, or you're not following any of this, I guess, that you're just closed off to it. You don't see the miracles because you're not looking for them or believe in them. You don't believe they exist. So if you shut yourself off, then I think you can shut this off for yourself. Right?
Because you always have the potential. Your potential is always there, but you can kind of remove yourself from there if you're, like you said, negative, or if you're not in alignment, all of that, right? And yeah, it's because your potential is always there, but you can shut it off, kind of thing.
I don't believe it can be shut off. I think miracles always do come and they're always there. It's just when you're in the place of fear or negativity, you just won't see it the way. Miracles are subtle.
Yeah.
Like we just realized yesterday that my son had his first week off given like this, like a miracle when I was here. And it never happened before. So if I wasn't in a receiving mode, I wouldn't have seen it.
Right.
But the miracles are always there. I've been through so many dark patches, but when I look back, I was always supported. I was always protected. I was always guided. Like it was there. We just don't see it.
Oh yeah, and that's what it
way.
says too. That's what it says. You can destroy your medium of communication, but not your potential. So there's always, like, that goes back to too, like, how many times have you been in a situation and you're full of anxiety and all of this, and all of a sudden somebody says something and you're like, and it was exactly what they needed to hear, but you needed to hear it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so the potential is always there. It's just allowing it to flow through you. And then if we go to wholeness and spirit, paragraph 5, line 2, spirit is therefore unalterable because it is already perfect, but the mind can elect what it chooses to serve. The only limit put on itself is that it cannot serve two masters. Now, this, I think, is such an interesting line because they say so, like, that you can't have love and hate in your heart at the same time. You can't have love and hate in your mind at the same time. You know? And the other thing that I think is cool about that line is that because I've been doing all this research into Egyptian history and all of that, and there were so many different gods that they paid tribute to in those times. And it was all like used through magic to tap into these gods and their knowledge and all of that. And recently I've done some interesting self-exploration that showed me that communing with God allows you, through God's allowance or through the, that energy, allows you to like step into those beings' knowledge instead of having to extract it from the outside. It's like you're able to like step into it more readily, which I thought that was really interesting. But it's only through God that we are able to like step into that. We have to commune with God, and then we can, we have access to anybody's experience, anybody, like anything that, but it has to be through the willingness of the spirit or the God energy. Yeah. I think this is interesting. Serving a master is looking for an experience that you, or a feeling that you think cannot come from your connection to source. I think I added that. But yeah, it's so interesting how we, like, when we're looking for something on the outside, it's like we're thinking that we're missing something in our now.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. A question I had all along is, do we create miracles, or are the miracles created for us by God?
I think all we're supposed to do is create an environment to allow the miracles to happen.
Okay.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
we talk about miracles, but it's
Open
all about our birthright, right?
that
Like
too.
we all have that birthright to be abundant in love and everything. We're supposed to come here and have everything we need, but our fears and blockages will kind of stop that from flowing. So the thing is to allow the flow, to find our way and accept our both sides, accept who we are in a whole. So the flow goes.
Yeah.
The true self. Yes.
You have to be open and open to allow.
Open to allow.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for sure, it's all come through meditation, calmness of the mind. And when we notice the negative thinking, oh, I'm thinking negative, because that's the practice. Okay, now I'm thinking negatively. What could I do? Okay, I'm going to think about something else, or change my mind, or, be positive in other ways. And that allows the flow.
I find myself often now, when I feel anxieties coming on, or whatever I'm thinking when those anxieties are coming on, is, okay, this is not the truth. So what is the truth?
Yes.
Yeah,
What am I afraid of?
Yeah, I find myself often being like, okay, this is not the truth. What is the truth? What is the reality? What is it that I need to know?
Yeah, you have to ask yourself questions and just,
Yeah. For me, it's what's the story? I've been learning that is, what's the background story? So if there's something today that you read something and it triggers you, well, there's a reason for that. There's a background story. So what's the story? What are you afraid of? What does that pertain to in your life?
Where does it come from?
Where does it come from?
Yeah. What's my story that brings that fear? Yes, makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
And that's a way to heal.
Because you could look at the same thing and have no attachment to it whatsoever. And what is happening? Oh, sorry, guys.
Okay.
Computer phone.
Yeah, and this is I think, where's this? This is The Illusion of Need. So section 6 in chapter 1. This is the second paragraph.
Yeah.
And it says, second paragraph, 5th line, a sense of separation from God is the only lack you need to correct.
Right.
Oh, I love this.
Unified needs lead to unified action, because this produces lack of conflict. So when we realize that there is no separation from God, we're all one with God and that energy and whatever that is, then we have unified action. And this produces lack of conflict, which is, yeah. And then there's like there's all these little, almost like little poem sections where they say, perfect love casts out fear.
Yeah.
If fear exists, then there is not perfect love, but only perfect love exists. If there is fear, it produces a state that does not exist. And that is magic. Those states that do not exist are formed out of magic because they're misaligned belief systems.
Right.
And it's brought to us, to our knowledge, in the feeling of fear and anxiety and everything, to remind us to clear and to let the flow in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if we look at section 7, distortion of miracle impulses, all real pleasure comes from God's work. This is because not doing his work is a denial of self.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a good line. It's like, yeah, but you're not doing those impulses, that you're denying yourself something.
Yeah. That was that's your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Denial of self leads to illusions, while correction of the error brings release from it. Child of God, you were created to create good, the beautiful, and the holy. Mm-hmm.
I found that, So right after that, Linda, there's a paragraph on 3.
Okay.
And I found it a little bit harsh. I don't know why I wrote harsh, but so it says fantasy is a distorted form of vision. Fantasies of any kind are distortions because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Actions that stem from distortions are literally the reactions of those who not know what they do. Mm-hmm. Fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false needs. See, to me, I assume that being creative was a good thing, but then when they talk about this fantasy, it's almost like, no, you shouldn't create fantasy. So I'm a little confused by that.
I have a question about this. Fantasy and like daydream, is it the same?
See, that is a great question.
Yeah.
That is a great question.
Because we create about, if we date, yeah.
So the question then becomes, if you're in alignment, wouldn't your fantasy be part of the miracle?
And it would be in alignment, maybe? Well, someone is not giving up. I'm really sorry. I'm going to put myself on mute for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so is the fantasy something that you're building onto in your life, that you're building onto, or is it a fantasy of something that you don't have?
That's a great question.
And is the fantasy stemming from a place of fear?
Yes, that's it.
Or is it stemming from a place of like, I have these beautiful, things that I want to bring into creation because I am full and loving and wanting to create more of that in the world.
That's being in alignment. And that's when, so I mean, a fantasy can be a number of things, but it can be, like you said, negative or positive, and then when you're in alignment with the positive of it, that you're allowing, at that point, allowing a miracle to happen.
Mhm.
I wonder if it's a bit more simple in the sense that it starts by saying fantasy is a distorted form of vision. So meaning that you're not seeing through the eyes of God or with the love that we're supposed to see. So anything that we're looking at with that distorted form of vision is a fantasy.
Yeah. What if fantasy comes from fear? Like, but when it doesn't come from fear, I think it's creation.
So further down, it says fantasies become totally unnecessary as the wholly satisfying nurture of reality becomes apparent to both the giver and the receiver. Reality is lost through usurpation, which produces tyranny. As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded. So I think that's what they're saying. I think you're right, is that the fantasy is anything that's not in alignment with God.
Because you see, a lot of fantasies come from fear.
You're right.
And lack, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lack.
Like slavery, control, it comes from fear. You're right. So it's a way to control it, and it's a fantasy, thinking that you should be able to, as a person, be able to do that.
I love that though. That's that line. I read that like 3 or 4 times when I was reading. As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, the release is not complete. So as long as there's anybody still living in fear on the earth, our mission is not done.
Right.
The mission will never be done.
So true.
We're constantly evolving. We're constantly clearing ourselves. Like that's our, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, isn't that our thing in here to do is to evolve, to clear those fears so we can get into alignment. But that's an ongoing.
It's forever. It's not
I
ending.
think it's never ending. You know, we're human. We're still you. We are connected to God. We are God. We are embodied by God, but we are in a human form, and that human form is not, it's perfectly unperfect.
Right.
The way I had understood it as well was that they were kind of reminding us that we were all one. So if we're just one piece, like one whole, and there's one small part of us, one single slave that's still not in love, well, then there's still a part of that one that's not. So it means that it's not complete yet. That's
right.
how
The mission is not completed till everyone's on board.
Because we're all one.
Right.
Yeah, I think I love that. That's yeah. So I think it's really interesting because then it goes on to talk about how these early sections, from what I understand, are like part of the study that can be difficult, but the implications of them become, more you'll read more deeper into them later on. But you need them for the base of the study that you're doing. I think that was, anyway, because some of these earlier, like, because I mean, some of it right at the beginning, it's like, wow, this is interesting. It's a lot of big concepts to start to wrap your mind around. Okay. I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me because of our inherent equality. I love that. And they talk about that often, is that we're not to be in awe of the people that carry out miracles.
Yeah, I read that. Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point of view too, because, you know, we can sometimes really put a lot of value into somebody who is able to channel a lot of that energy. And I guess it's wrongly placed that way.
Hmm.
Because we're all equal.
Because we're all equal.
I think it's a
No.
reminder, well, that we're capable of that as well.
Yeah.
But if we're putting ourselves in awe, then we think that we can't maybe attain that same state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm. So moving forward to chapter 2, separation and atonement. So the atonement has been like wrapping my mind around some of those concepts has been really interesting too. And it's interesting, like I think paragraph 2 or line 2, the first paragraph was, it says the atonement as defense. Where did I see that?
Where did you see that?
I'm looking, I can't find it again. I don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't find it again. Oh, okay, I get it. It's section 2, sorry. The atonement as defense is the whole section 2. Second paragraph. Denial of error is a strong defense of truth, but denial of truth results in miscreation, the projections of the ego.
Is that on page 17?
19,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
All right. Yeah.
Paragraph
okay.
2, denial of error is a strong defense of truth. So when we deny our like fears, or we deny our anxieties or whatever, it's a defense of the, okay, denial of error is a strong defense of truth. So it's like we're reinstating truth by denying those errors, those fears. But denial of truth results in miscreation. So denying that everybody is created out of love is a miscreation. And that leads to projections of the ego. Yeah, I think this is really interesting. Projections has been a big focus of mine, like really starting to understand how that works. If you go down to paragraph 3, everyone defends his treasure and will do so automatically. The real questions are, what do you treasure and how much do you treasure it?
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, are you treasuring miscreations? Is that how a projection happens? You treasure your miscreations? I thought that was an interesting.
I think that is what that means. Because when you look at the next page, I love that. It says, whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, which can heal any of them with equal ease. So, which means it doesn't matter what you create in your mind, it doesn't make it true. And if it's not in alignment, the miracle can fix it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, what you said. Yeah. All right. So then if we keep going to the altar of God, that's the next section.
What page?
This one is page 21, the altar of God. Second paragraph. For perfect effectiveness, the atonement belongs at the center of the inner altar. That's like the inner altar is the God within. Both separation and the, oops, sorry, where am I looking here? Oh, 2, 3. Both separation and the fear are miscreations that must be undone for the restoration of the temple and for the opening of the altar to receive atonement. Yeah, so believing that we are separate and believing in the fear is a miscreation.
Right.
Mm.
And must be undone for the restoration of the temple, for the opening of the altar to receive atonement. So we have to decide that that is not the truth in order to allow atonement to happen.
Right.
And that just allowing that, this heals the separation by placing within you one effective defense against all separation thoughts and making you perfectly invulnerable. It like brings me back to the Mind Valley Visham. I don't know if you guys ever hear of him, but he wrote, I believe it was him that wrote the book, The Unfuckwithable State.
Oh, never heard of that one.
Like the unfuck yourself there?
Yeah, well, the unfuckwithable. So you're
Okay.
like, nobody can mess with your inner state, right? Sorry about swearing, but I think that that's like, you know, the atonement. So like really knowing deep inside that we are not separate, we're all one. And then allowing that atonement, that higher thinking to really penetrate into your being. I like this one too. Paragraph 3, line 3 is, you can temporize and you are capable of enormous procrastination, but you cannot depart entirely from your creator, who sets the limits on your ability to miscreate. There are limits on how much miscreation you're allowed to do in your world. It's kind of a relieving statement.
Yeah.
You can
only screw up so many times, and then they're like, "Nuh-uh, back to the start of the line you go."
That's right. You can only go so deep into the pits of your own hell.
But they bring you back up though.
Until you learn your mistake.
Mhm.
After that, yeah. I marked down on page 22, paragraph 4. Where is it? Oh, let's see. Spiritual vision literally cannot see error and merely looks for atonement. All solutions the physical eye seeks dissolve. Spiritual vision looks within and recognizes immediately that the altar has been defiled and need to be repaired and protected. Perfectly aware of the right defense, it passes over all looking past error to truth. So looking past error, so we look past error, is that what it means? We're looking past error, so we're always looking for truth? Because strength of its-
It says right at the beginning, spiritual vision literally cannot see error. So if you are in alignment with spiritual vision, you don't even see it. It's not even existing. It merely looks for the atonement. So it's constantly looking for what is the truth, what is the light, what is the,
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes you really don't know what is the truth. You don't really know what the truth is.
You really don't. And
Yeah.
it's accepting that too and saying it's okay to not know the truth right now.
Is it only Creator that knows the truth? Is it only Creator?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, like, are we supposed to know the truth? Does the truth come to us from Creator? Is it only the Creator that knows the truth?
Sometimes we receive truth through other people. That's like, sometimes they'll have these like moments of just speaking pure truth, and then you're like, oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my thoughts weren't letting that one in.
Yeah, right. And I assume that those truths come from Creator into that person. So that's what I like. Yeah, like, does everything come from Creator?
Well, I mean, only light is the truth. Only light is what is the actual truth of what existence is. So
what comes from the heart is love. So if it's heartfelt and comes from your heart, then it should be the truth, right? Like, if it's coming from your heart, from the place of love, then that it must be truth. Like, or from your heart and your soul. If it comes from your heart and your soul, then it must be truth. Is correct?
We also have to ask ourselves, is it something that's raising the vibration? Is it bringing more light in? Or is, I think we need to evaluate in that way, right? Yeah, the children of God are entitled to perfect comfort that comes from perfect trust. The perfect comfort that comes from perfect trust. And it's so interesting, because I find that especially I have had a hard time trusting myself, right? Like a hard time trusting, okay, am I seeing fear in here, or am I being driven into a different direction by Creator? What is happening here?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it cautious or is it fear?
Yeah, or is it just that my path is going in a different path and that path is going in a different path? Like, and just trusting that, when you see that happening, it's like, okay, we're just going in our different paths, and that's okay. That's not a fear state. That's just like, I feel like my energy is going to raise if I go in this direction. And, sometimes separation from other people is the only way to raise to that next level.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
What are your ideas about that, Annie?
put on the spot. I'm not sure. I was kind of just listening at this point as well. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Distracted because I'm taking care of a fire at the same time, so I missed a little bit there.
Oh, okay, sorry. But yeah, it's just such an interesting, because sometimes the energy just takes you into a different direction, and it's not it may look like it was to come out of fear, but generally it's just you're going in this direction because that's the best direction for you.
Time to let go of something.
Mhm.
We eventually have to let go of something in order for something better to come to us, right? It opens other doors. You have to close a door to open a new door.
Yeah.
Or go on a different path to receive.
Yeah. And trust, right? It's trusting those moments. It's trusting.
Very, very important to trust.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like if you're really if you're letting things go and then you're feeling, I need to have something new in my life. Well, I need to do this, or I need to go in this direction in order to create something new, right? So I guess we're creating a new path. We're opening more doors for the miracles to come in, and for to be in alignment, and for all of that,
Yeah. Absolutely. I have my ears always perk up when I see stuff around forgiveness, right? Because I'm like, oh, I just want to know so much more about forgiveness. So there's paragraph, where am I looking here? Paragraph 7. Well, there is principles of a miracle worker. Did you guys want to talk about that?
What page?
Let me just find here. Special principles of a miracle worker. It's on page 27. Oh, are we going to 27? I think we only needed to go to 25, but
Yeah, I think we're
so principle number 1 is the miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. Since it is an out of pattern time interval, the ordinary considerations of time and space do not apply. When you perform a miracle, I will arrange both time and space to adjust to it. So, I mean, we hear about these miracles happening, and I guess we do see them in certain times in our own life. I don't know if we see them to the extent a healing miracle or whatever.
When you're talking about forgiveness, what happens when you finally be in peace with and forgive what happened in the past, or however it goes, with you have a bad relationship with somebody, or somebody mistreated you, and then you make peace with it, the relationship changes with that person. I went through that very specifically with my dad, where it was a very complicated relationship as I was young. Older on, I went for therapy and whatever. We all have our ways to work on things. And when I finally found peace with that, I didn't even have to talk to him about it. The whole dynamic of that relationship changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easy.
The energy of it changed.
Yes. Everything.
Yeah.
So there was peace. It was flowing. It was easy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And forgiveness is so powerful like that. We don't always need to have an intellectual understanding behind what's happening when we're doing forgiveness work, but it just seems to kind of adjust certain parts of us. So I have this, like, it's a fine line between remembering our true essence of who we really are, and in this, I'm going to call it atonement from what I understand from the book, right? Is this atoning that happens in our energy fields when we do true forgiveness, when we allow ourselves to start to raise and have like different inspired thinking, taking different, it's like I used to say to a friend, when your puzzle piece changes, the puzzle pieces of the people around you change. If they still want to fit in your puzzle, they have to adjust. That's how it is, right? And the same thing for you. When somebody else changes, you have to adjust if you still want to be in that puzzle.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that's, those things are so unspoken. They're the quiet parts of, I think, forgiveness and relationships that we don't.
Yeah, it happens so subtly.
Mm-hmm.
So subtle that people don't notice sometimes. And I don't know, it probably puts you, from what I understand, it probably puts you at the same healing, at the level, same level of healing, kind of. You're on the same, I'm trying to find my words, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lost my train of thought.
No, it's, and that other person that is adjusting doesn't necessarily have to be on that same level, but that mutual respect that you're demanding needs to be met at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else did I mark here?
Guys, I have to leave and get back to work.
Thank you, Kathy, for being here.
But it's been a pleasure. And we'll talk next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Bye,
Bye,
Kathy.
Kathy. Thanks.
Bye.
We are at the hour, so we can get going here. Did we want to talk about another principle before we go?
Okay, page 25.
Okay.
Number 2.
Okay.
Magic is the mindless or the miscreative use of mind. Just that statement. What does that mean?
Well,
Magic, mindless, or the miscreative use of mind.
So this is what I've been starting to understand about magic, is magic comes from a place of lack, or that's something that you don't have. So you're trying to create something in your life, which comes from a place of lack or deprivation or separation. From what I understand.
Yeah. Physical medication are forms of spell. But if you are afraid to use the mind to heal, you should not attempt to do so.
Oh, repeat that?
Physical medications are forms of spell. But if you are afraid to use the mind to heal, you should not attempt to do so. And it goes on after that, but just that.
Yeah, so and the next line is, the very fact that you are afraid makes your mind vulnerable to miscreation. So the very fact that there's something that's not in alignment in your body, something that's not 100% healthy,
yeah,
it makes you vulnerable to miscreation.
Because there's
Definitely.
fear. Because of fear.
So
That you're afraid.
It pretty much states that any health conditions or anything that's not in alignment, that you are actually miscreating in your body. And the other thing too that I think is really interesting is, which I read along the way somewhere, was the idea that the body is only a tool to the mind. And when we give the body more power, it's a form of miscreation, and therefore it can become out of balance with the creator, or
Healing. You are therefore likely to misunderstand any healing that might occur, and because of ecocentricity and fear usually occur together. Egocentric.
egocentricity, fear
Yeah.
usually put together. You may be unable to accept the real source of healing.
Because your ego gets in the way and fear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, our ego is a big.
And there's
That's a big
so many
topic.
layers to the ego. There's so many layers. There's so much happening in that mind. It's like amazing.
Like sometimes when I have a client here for Reiki, and sometimes the ego just kind of peeks in, and I'm like, you can leave, ego, leave. And right away it puts me right back into the, like, I don't get out of the state of the receiving from Reiki, but that ego sometimes will just want to peek in, right? What are you doing, kind of thing. But I just tell it to leave, and right away it just leaves.
Good.
Oh, yeah. You don't want the ego involved in certain things you're doing, for sure.
Yeah. And because that leads to miscreation, that leads to, not being in alignment with. And yeah, very interesting conversation. Does anybody want to add anything before we say goodbye?
Well, I think this is very interesting, and everything we talk about brings light bulbs in my mind, and I haven't even read it yet, but it really, like, there's lights just lighting up, and yeah, that's very nice. I can't wait to get my glasses now.
You're doing very well for not reading it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You are. Yeah, this very interesting, and there's so much to think about. And yeah, so what page are we starting, and how many do we have to read till our next?
So we'll do another 15 pages. So we went to 25 today, even though we went past a little bit, but 25. So it'll be 30 pages for the next talk. So we'll be at, so we're at 25. So 15 pages is what? 40 pages? Page 40? Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
My mind and its math. Come on, ego. Do your work.
Page 50.
Is it? It would be page 40, I think, eh?
It is 40.
35
If it's
plus 15.
15, yeah.
15 pages, so page 40. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for this beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
Okay. See you next time.
See you next time. If anybody's interested in joining the book club, just send a message to any of us on the panel and we'll get you in. You don't necessarily have to do the lives, just messaging and, asking good questions or throwing out some quotes in there is more than enough.